Welcome, traveler. Get ready to level up in fantasy football. Join Mike and Evan and a special guest every week as we break down some of the most important topics in fantasy football, the NFL, and help you win Dynasty championships. Let's get into it.
Man, that new intro gets me fired up. It is another episode. This is actually episode 90 of the Fantasy Football RPG podcast. I am one of the co-hosts, but I will be stepping away for a couple of weeks. I'm having a baby. I'm not having a baby. That would be weird. But my wife's having a baby, and I guess she wants me to be there. So I'll be gone for a little bit. My co-host, Evan, will run the show. Evan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. But, Mike, you got to understand it's 2024. So, I guess you could.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I just got to get in the gym a little more, do baby making day. Is that a thing?
Just drink enough beers that you can get that beer belly and just play it off.
Yeah. I'm with child and with beer. We will be joined in a little bit by Jagger May from Football Guys, who is a lovely guest, and we're excited to have him, but he's running a little behind. So, first, Evan and I are just going to talk a little bit about our favorite food at a barbecue. So, Evan, what is your favorite food? It's summertime, the weather's nice, food's out on the table. What are you reaching for first?
Man, if I have somebody that's willing to take the time to properly prep and properly smoke a nice fatty brisket, that is the way to my heart right there.
There you go. I mean, being from Tennessee, that's got to be a staple in your life.
I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania, but I live in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is a staple now.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be. If I had to go with one, I would actually go with a pork butt, like a nice pulled pork sandwich. A little bit of coleslaw. Yes, you put coleslaw on top. That is the right way to do your pork sandwich. But we got a lot of stuff to get into. We're going to break down the NFC West today and go through all of their new additions, subtractions, talk about a little bit of season-long props. But first, news and notes.
And now it's time for news and notes.
All right, first and foremost, all the receivers made a buttload of money. Jalen Waddle was extended for 3 years, $84.75 million, $76 million guaranteed. That makes him, is he top 10?
I don't know if he's actually top 10 right now, but he's right up there, and he's getting pretty close to Tyreek's numbers.
He's flirting with it. Fantasy Football Universe, thanks for coming on. I hope the movie is lovely. Let us know what movie you're watching. But also, the Benson Connor pain. It's real. It's sad. One of my favorite running back prospects, one of my favorite running backs in the league. And now I'm obligated to not like one of them. So I got to stake my claim on that in a little bit here. Do you think the Waddle extension was justified? Do you think the cap number is just going to keep going up and they're just going to keep making buckets and buckets of money?
Yeah, I mean, Waddle is very important for them winning right now, and that's exactly what they want to do. They're most likely going to continue to work on a 2 extension the rest of this offseason, as has been reported. They're hoping to be able to lock him up before the season starts, which if you do that, then you just add a little bit more money to Tyreek's deal, and you're able to use the money that you saved from letting some star defensive players walk this past offseason. So, but offense brings in fans, and we love offense for fantasy purposes. So,
yep, we love it for fantasy, and also when we talk about like a team building perspective, obviously the most important position is quarterback. Number 2 is kind of a toss-up. You can talk about left tackle, edge rusher, or wide receiver. Each of them brings a little bit to the table, so I think it's right. Like there was a period in time where nobody wanted to touch the Devontae Adams contract precedent, and now that contract looks very comfortable. When we talk about Justin Jefferson was extended for 4 years, $140 million with $110 guaranteed at signing. This makes him the highest paid non-quarterback, correct? And this makes him the highest paid receiver by a mile. Obviously, it's well-earned. Obviously, it's justified. But I want to talk about his dynasty price real quick. I know this isn't the NFC North show. Is Justin Jefferson still your wide receiver 1?
Still the wide receiver 1, especially if you have him and you're playing him in a lineup, looking at him at his games at home and or games in a dome. It's just night and day splits between him in a dome and him outside. In a dome, absolutely elite. Nobody's coming up to even grace his presence. Outside, he's still a top 15 wide receiver.
Yeah, that checks. And last but not least, just today, Christian McCaffrey signed a new extension for 2 years, $38 million. This makes him the highest paid running back by a mile. How much longer can he continue this run of dominance?
What are you defining his dominance, Mike? Having top 10 seasons?
Let's say do you think he's the RB1 in redraft this year?
He will be the RB1 in redraft, taken off the boards, and he will finish as a top. Yeah, all right, we'll go with it. He'll finish as the top point per game, minimum half a season running back.
Okay, we'll take that. With his extension, I was just looking at 2024 receiver salaries. He makes about the same as Tyler Lockett does this year. He will make less than Jalen Waddle and a little more than Gabe Davis. So RIP to running backs, still a little bit of money, but it's unfortunate the way that is just completely deflated and fallen on its face. He will make double what Curtis Samuel makes, so that's nice.
It's always a plus.
Any other news and notes, or you want to get into the NFC West divisional breakdown?
Yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes here.
All right, I would love to, but my mouse is stuck. There it is.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
All right, so we're going to run through each division over the coming months. I'm sorry that I won't be here for at least a couple of weeks, but we're going to start with the NFC West, which has a lot of juicy fantasy football and dynasty value. We're going to start with the reigning champs, the highest win total, and arguably the best team in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. Recent additions include Josh Dobbs to solidify their backup quarterback position, get the passion on in there. They added an offensive tackle, an offensive guard, a couple of running backs at Isaac Orendo, and let's not forget about him, Cody Schrader, UDFA. If there's a team that is going to make the UDFA their actual backup running back, it is the 49ers. They also went ahead and drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round, which was a choice, and they signed Jacob Cowing a little bit later. They lost Sam Darnold. I mean, just that's tough. Sorry, that team's in shambles now. And Charlie Warner, who, if you're listening to this show, you might know his name, but probably didn't beforehand. How do you think that these additions and subtractions act on the team in general? And then we'll talk a little bit about their prices in Dynasty.
Yeah, so the team in general, when you look at it, I mean, can you really blame Darnold? I mean, he got a potentially starting job for a little bit of the season at his new gig up in Minnesota, so you can't really blame him at all for leaving. Ricky Pearsall is one that they continue to say that he's in their immediate and future plans, so it'll be really interesting to see how they make that work. Not quite sure how that's going to go. You look at it and you say he is very clearly, with no injuries, the fifth target earner in that offense. And they gave Juwan Jennings an extension on top of it, which he plays a very specific role in that offense. Dobbs is great. You know, we love seeing backup quarterbacks. We know what this offense and this coaching staff has done for backup quarterbacks, continuing to just kind of churn them out to other teams, continue their journeyman career. We've seen some injuries. Obviously, it was somewhat of a fluke injury for Purdy. We saw a little bit of that in college as well. So there's all of that to take in. But once again, this is team building 101 when you have a rookie quarterback on a very cheap deal. You're able to go out and be able to pay and give extensions to your guys, which is one of the reasons why I'm really surprised to see them not just dishing out contracts to Ayuk and Debo. Mike, what's your thoughts on that contract situation?
It's interesting because all of their offseason moves point to one of them being moved, but they're still the lead target earners. They're still the engine of this offense. Like, why would you want to move on from them in order to move to a Ricky Pearsall? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but the Shanahan system has succeeded outside of the pieces that are inside of it, so maybe this is X's and O's are more important than Jimmy and Joe's situation, but it would be very interesting to me. Do you want to play a quick game?
Sure. Let's go, Mike.
Who is older, Ricky Pearsall or Jackson Smith and Jigba?
Ricky Pearsall.
Who is older, Ricky Pearsall or Demario Douglas?
I'm going to go with Pearsall because he was at Florida for a while.
Who is older, Ricky Pearsall or third-year wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson?
Wan'Dale came out as a junior, so I'm gonna go with Wandale, but it feels like a trick.
It's still Pearsall. Who is
Okay.
older, Ricky
All right.
Pearsall or George freaking Pickens? Why would you? He is a late breakout. He's not limited physically. Like, he is a supreme athlete. Like, we put the labels on him because of the player that he is, but it just doesn't make sense that they took this player in the first round. I hope it works out, but instead of playing that fun game, he is currently wide receiver 41 on Keep Trade Cut. I'm just going to list the names who are immediately behind him. Are you ready?
Let's go.
We've got Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson, an early 2025 second, Chris Godwin, or Amari Cooper. Would you take Ricky Pearsall over any of those players?
No.
If you can trade Ricky Pearsall for any of those players, go do it right now. Best case scenario, Pearsall is the number 5 target. Worst case scenario, he gets the Jackson Smith and Jigba treatment, fades into like dynasty irrelevancy where people don't care about him anymore, and now you're holding on to a lost bag. I like him more than a couple of other receivers in the draft. Like, you should take day 1 receivers over day 3 receivers, but his price right now doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's also the offseason, so younger players get a boost, older players don't. Get him off of your rosters if you have him there now. Anything else on the 49ers and any of their players?
Oh, let's see. I mean, we talked about the Christian McCaffrey news, 100% the engine that runs this offense. What do you think about the backup situation here? You know, consistently the backup running backs have gotten some touches. They've gotten some workload. They try and manage McCaffrey. Are any of these backup running backs guys that you want to take a later round shot on, Mike?
Yeah, so
let's start off from a dynasty perspective, and then we'll also flip over to redraft for a little bit here.
From a dynasty perspective, if I'm the CMC owner, I want Elijah Mitchell on my team. I think he's the clear-cut handcuff to have. The reason that Jordan Mason was getting so many snaps last year is because Elijah Mitchell was dealing with an injury on his own. However, if there are players that are going to take that away from him, Isaac Guerrero has all of the measurables. We talk about he is 220 pounds, he runs 4.3, he's explosive, he's strong. But when you're watching the Louisville tape, it never really was put together. You almost watched a running back that was thinking while they were running instead of just doing it. But also, we talk about the Shanahan system and how unexpected things can pop up. That's why I wanted to shout out Cody Schrader earlier. He gives everything that he has in every single carry. He's a walk-on that turned into an All-American. If there's somebody that's going to work their way up that depth chart, it wouldn't surprise me if Cody Schrader makes the team as a surprise and gets a couple of snaps at some point in the season. For redraft, it's Elijah Mitchell, and everybody else you're just watching the news and double-checking. Does that sound about right for you?
Honestly, with Elijah Mitchell's injury history, I would actually say that Isaac Guerrero is the better dynasty asset as the backup running back, and then redraft Elijah Mitchell. You're just hoping that he's healthy. If, God forbid, something were to happen to CMC, which would be horrible on so many levels for so many dynasty teams, so many redraft teams. Obviously, we want CMC to succeed. Love watching him play football ever since he was at Stanford. Enjoy watching all of that. And we're just joined by Jagger. What's up, man?
Hey guys, sorry guys. Last show, this is my 3rd show in a row. Everything kept running a little bit longer, and I'm like, man, maybe I talk too much because seems to be a common denominator, and it's me.
Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on, being the 3rd show of the day. You know, you're just high demand. You know, what can we say?
We're bad at scheduling. Who could say?
No, it's the marathon, man. It's got nothing to do with that. We were just talking about backup running backs in San Francisco, which I know is your heart and joy. Which running back would you want to have on this roster outside of Christian McCaffrey?
I think Isaac Guerrero is the guy to want, and it's like I feel like injury prone is one of those things where it's not real until it kind of is. Like, have we seen Elijah Mitchell play 3 games in a row? Like since his rookie career, it hasn't happened. And when you look at what Isaac Guerrero is, which is a zoomy boy, and what that 49er style offense wants, they just want a guy that could come in and do the job. Can you break off a chuck play and relieve our prized asset, number 1 boy, Christian McCaffrey. So if I have to have one, I think he's the handcuff, and Elijah Mitchell is like he was like a 5th round pick, guys. He doesn't. I hate to say this about people in general, even if it's a pod, but like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
That's rough. But also, talking about Isaac Guerendo, Elijah Mitchell's a free agent after this year. They just spent a pick on Guerendo. They signed Cody Schrader as a UDFA. Jordan Mason's already on the roster. These are warning signs that they're thinking about moving on from him moving forward. So maybe if you're the Elijah Mitchell owner in Dynasty, it's time to flip him if something pops off during the season.
Yeah.
Jagger, I wanted to ask you about this before we move on to our next team. We were just talking a little bit about Ricky Pearsall. Where do you value him in Dynasty right now? Would a 2025 early 2 rock your jimmies? Would Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson? Those are all players that are going after him on keep trade cut right now. So
Deontay Johnson is where I would have to make a decision. I'd have to pull up my rankings, and that's more like, am I rebuilding or am I competing? Like if I'm competing, I want Deontay, and I think Deontay's undervalued and the type of receiver I'm going to try to buy for a lot of my competing rosters. But I would, if I need a rebuild, I would definitely try to get Ricky Pearsall before he gets more expensive. A 2025 second, I've done that personally. I'm like, okay, like I can't trade you a bunch of thirds. Here's the second that I'll buy back from somebody later, that in especially a lot of my rosters, it's going to be a mid to late second. I would do that in a heartbeat. So like, to me, he's the ultimate buy right now out of the rookies. Like I feel like he's attainable and I'm trying to get him, but I especially as volatile as Dynasty is, I do feel weird putting him ahead of Deontay Johnson. Like I can't do that right now. If I have that, I need to fix that. Now I'm paranoid.
You got to go double check. This is why I love having you on the show, because Evan and I are on the same page. I think that Ricky Pearsall is like vastly overvalued in Dynasty right now. I would take Hollywood ahead of him. I would take the early 25 second. I just don't think there's any way that he's going to gain value throughout the 2024 season. And as much talk as we're like, Ayuk's going to get traded, like Debo's going to get traded, he would still have to fight with Kittle. He'd still have to fight with CMC. He'd still have to fight with whichever receiver stays. Now we're talking about hopefully he's the 4th option on the team. I don't see a lot of upside unless he immediately becomes Brandon Ayuk.
Here's what I'll push back. I would agree with you if it was in any other offense besides this style, because I've even argued I've been anti-Debo and I got proved wrong last year about it. That like if you're in a crazy efficient offense that is just running properly, you're probably going to earn targets. You're going to have a dud game or a disappointing game, or you're going to get those George Kittle, I'm going to destroy your opponent and make them cry in a Monday Night Football game. You'll have those. I would do that. If he was like on the I mean it, literally any other roster, like besides maybe like I think the Texans are fine, but they run the same offense. I would agree with you.
Miami, same deal.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna move on down the list. We got 3 more teams to get to, and then we want to talk a little bit about the betting lines for each of them. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. They have added Jimmy Garoppolo, who got nailed for performance-enhancing drugs. I would hate to see not performance-enhanced Jimmy G. Demarcus Robinson still exists. Colby Parkinson signed there. Kevin Dotson re-signed. Guard, Steelers legend. They also went out and they grabbed Blake Corum. They lost their other backup quarterback in Carson Wentz and their starting center. I really want to hammer on the Blake Corum conundrum that we're running into. So Kyron Williams went out there, proved it, nailed it. Now we see a day 2 running back come in. I've seen this song and dance before, but I want to hear what your guys' perspectives are on it. How do you feel about the Kyron Williams versus Blake Corum valuation in Dynasty? Evan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely got into a couple YouTube moments where they were coming at me in the comments because I am very much a one running back in that offense. I think it is very clear that you're looking at Kyron for 12 to 14 games a year, being a points per game monster, you don't expect him to be able to play the full season. You know he's going to get dinged up. He's had injuries in college. He's had injuries in the pros. We've seen it. We know that he's going to miss some time. But when he's there, he is the guy and will be getting 70 to 75 easily, in my opinion, percent of the snap share there. When he's out, then it's going to be Corum. Why does a team like this go out and get somebody this early in the draft? Well, you do that for a very simple reason. You're trying to continue to win throughout the season. You look at the games where Kyren wasn't in there, the rushing yards that the offense was putting up was right around 100, if I'm remembering correctly here, right around 100. And then it was about 135 in the games that he was playing. Specifically, if you isolate the second half of the season, it was even better than that. I think it was close to 145, 150, somewhere in that range. So you look at Kyren being on the field, the entire offense runs better. They're scoring more. They're doing more on the offense. They're controlling the ball. The time of possession's higher. All of these things that just help you to win football games as an NFL team, he's able to contribute and he's able to help them with. And I think that's huge. You don't take Corum to say, oh, you're going to split carries now with Kyren when Kyren's healthy. You're taking Corum because you think you're a playoff team. You have a 36-now-year-old Stafford. You have Kupp, who's once again another year older. You have Nakua, who's now once again primed to say that he's the number one on that team, taking over for Kupp. And what else do you need? I mean, you have a defense that proved to be a whole heck of a lot better than people expected it to be last year. So yeah, there's some coaching turnover there that you need to account for. But overall, this is a team that is heavily looking to be a playoff team.
I would push back a little bit. I think that Blake Corum, if we had the 2022 Blake Corum declare for the NFL, there would be no question he is eating Kyren Williams for lunch. He's taking all the snaps. He is the guy. Because we saw him come back from a meniscus tear, now, we saw him start a little slow. We saw him be a little inefficient. Maybe he lost a step. But as the season went on, he got a little bit better, averaging 6.5 yards per carry against Washington in the college championship. If they're like a clone of Williams, this is an opportunity for him to come in. Williams goes down a little bit, and then they go, wow, Blake can do everything he can and stay healthy. So I'm a little worried that it starts with a 70-30, and then it turns into a 70-30 the wrong way for the Kyren Williams owner. I loved Blake Corum in 2022, and I refuse to let go of that. Jagger, what about you?
I'll push back incredibly hard. I think that how do I put this? I think you're overvaluing every other running back in that building. The team was better with Kyren Williams because Darrell Williams and everyone that they were willing to use were so bad. That's just where I'm at. Like,
whoa, Zach Evans slander?
Yeah, this is Zach Evans slander, guys. That's where it is for me. And you hit on a good point. He's coming back from a meniscus tear, and Blake Corum was like a top 4 back for me. And I think people didn't like it because people hate unsexy backs. That's why they hated David Montgomery. Like, Blake Corum is boring as hell. Man, this guy really follows his blockers and then just gets up in the hole. He's not going to break a 60-yarder, but it doesn't matter. He's smart, and especially when you have a pro-style offense like Michigan, when I see Blake Corum, I'm like, wow, coach is really going to like him because he can do his job. And that's what people want in a running back. And to bring it back to Kyren Williams and why I think he's overvalued is that one, you look at the draft capital that was spent on Blake Corum. 2, you look at the foot injury. I don't think we talk about enough. Like I'm not, again, a Twitter doc, but it kind of looks like things to come, and they're worried and preparing for something to happen with this foot injury. And then again, to bring this full circle, I just want to remind you guys that literally God had to come down and help him spread the Red Sea for him to get a starting role. That's kind of what happened there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm going to ask one more question before this becomes the Blake Corum and Kyren Williams show. I'll start with you, Jagger. What would you sell Kyren Williams for if he's on your Dynasty rosters right now? What's the earliest pick or latest pick?
a first rounder is clearly his value right now. If you can get a first, I would say if you can get a 2024 first, that is a lot better than 2025 right now, because obviously we know what the value of what those are, and you're going to get probably a good prospect at a retained value. But I would take a 2025 first. I think that it it's hard for me to spend on Blake Corum right now. It's really hard for me to spend. And you talk about a pivot. I did a whole segment on Football Guys on it of everyone around his range, and I joked that you could literally draft anyone at his sleeper ADP around his range. Anyone is a better pick. Like Jalen Waddle goes around there, and then when you look at I actually still have the show sheet up. Look at that. When you look at his keep trade cut range, a late first is currently his value. I would take Brian Thomas Jr. I would take Xavier Worthy. Hot take, I would take Bryce Young and Trey Benson, who also go around his range.
Cool. With that in mind, Evan, pitch me the warm and fuzzy feeling. What would it take you to get Kyren Williams off your roster?
I mean, if he's coming off of my roster, you're going to have to give me 25 first, along with somewhat of a usable old crusty running back that I can get half, if not 2/3 of the production that Kyren would be giving me. So you're going to need to give me a future asset and say and I'm scrolling down, a James Conner, Singletary type.
Okay. Good to know. All right, so let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks in all of their glory. They traded for Sam Howell because the Commanders thought he was too much of a dog and he would bully the rookie quarterback. Noah Fant re-signed. Christian Haynes, new starting guard, allegedly. A.J. Barner, tight end that doesn't matter. And then they lost a couple of interior offensive linemen. They lost Drew Lock, who is just Sam Howell with worse branding, and Will Disley. I want to hammer in on the offensive coordinator change. So they went with the Washington Huskies offensive coordinator. Do we think that this is going to expand the role for all of the receivers? Is going to help one in particular? Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I think we saw the Huskies utilize all of their wide receivers. I think we saw them spread the ball around. I think we saw a very good passing attack. Can Geno be the point guard of this offense this year? That is really the question. If he can't, then Sam Howell very well could go out there and start chucking the ball around. So, Mike, I'm going to pass it back to you here. What percentage chance do you think Sam Howell has of starting 4 or more games this year?
Starting 4 or more?
Starting.
Did Geno die?
Do you think he's injury prone? Do you think
I don't.
he has a chance of getting hurt? Okay.
If we're saying outside of injury risk, because those are truly random and unpredictable, I'm going to say 5 to 10% chance. Like, the door is creaked open, and if there's still a Sam Howell truther somewhere out there in your dynasty leagues, like, go sell him for whatever you can. I don't see a long-term starter in Sam Howell. I do see somebody that could start a couple of games and will be viable for fantasy football, but his style of play is so like gunslinger, push it down the field, try what I can, but he doesn't have, this is going to sound really mean, he doesn't have the talent to back it up. So he has the dog mentality, but none of the arm talent. So I don't see it working out. So I would say under 4 games is if you put the line at 4.5.
Okay,
Nailed it.
Sounds good. Yeah, completely agree. I think there's too many people out there that are irrationally high on Sam Howell, thinking that he's going to be able to push for that QB spot in training camp, in OTAs right now. I mean, it's insanity. You know, he can go out there. We saw him. I mean, his arm basically fell off last season with how much Bieniemy was making him throw. I mean, he went out there and he was slinging it around left and right. And there's a lot of tape on him. We saw the good, we saw the bad. So with that being said, the wide receivers, all right, sticking with Geno, there's 3 wide receivers to consider here. So Jagger, which one at cost are you most interested in?
DK Metcalf. To be honest, I think that they're all priced appropriately. Like JSN might be a little high because it's not. And this is what I tell people, it's not about the talent or I think that he sucks or whatever. It's just that we need to be realistic that he may only put up 800 yards again this season. And with that in mind, he's going to just lose dynasty value because even though we're in a forward-thinking game, people tend to only look backwards. And that is like me trying to think about market value. But like I like DK Metcalf because he's finally a wide receiver too, and people finally get it. And it's like, and one reason I like him now at his wide receiver too, cause I'm willing to accept the variance because the system is perfect for him. Like I know that like I may get a game where DK Metcalf's only going to get 2 catches, but I know I'm going to get a game where he's going to get 3 touchdowns because we've seen the Washington offense. They ran a pro style offense at college. It's not cheap or gimmicky, but they do stretch the field and they want to continually attack the field deep. And what is the one thing that DK Metcalf is good at? It is the deep ball. So I'm willing to draft that, especially now I'm thinking about it, I'm about to hop in some underdog drafts. So I should be a little bit more bullish on him than where I have been.
Yeah, you got to ride the variance, enjoy it a little bit. This entire offense is due for a facelift, so I'm glad they're bringing in a fresh-minded OC. And with that, Geno Smith's going off the board at quarterback. Where is he at right now? Like 20-something? Yeah, he's down there. Let me give him a quick search. Come on, computer. You can do this. 31, not even 20-something. He's going off after Aaron Rodgers, after Daniel Jones, after Justin Fields, who may not even play. Oh, Justin Fields is playing this year. Don't get it twisted. After Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, like there's just a couple of names there that if he returns to form and this passing game looks even remotely better, like quarterback 31 is a very attainable price that I'll be happy to be grabbing him at. Anything else on the Seattle offense?
The running backs, I think we don't hit on enough.
Fair.
Because Jeff has a theory, Jeff Bell, that he's not sure. It's kind of like a new guns in town. He's not convinced that any team thinks that Kenneth Walker is like the RB1. Do you guys think that it's going to be a little bit more of a closer split, or do you think it's going to be business as usual?
I loved Zach Charbonnet coming out, so this might be a little twisted, but I think it could be closer to 60-40, and it just makes both of them like not viable at their current cost. So we're looking at Kenneth Walker, and we want to value him the way that we valued him a couple of years ago, where he's this locked and loaded RB1, and we're fired up, and every single week you're just like, I'm starting Kenneth Walker, the other team should be afraid. Those days might already be gone, and he's not even, I don't even know if he's 23 yet. He might be 23 and a day. So if they're moving to more of a split with as talented a back as Charbonnet is, it's going to be gross for both of them, and the spike weeks are going to be harder to come by.
Yeah, and that's why the way I kind of build my team, Kenneth Walker's out of my draft range. Like I'm either going Breece Hall, I'm going like the big 3, or I'm like, all right, we're kind of done until, or I'll get Jonathan Taylor as well. But then I kind of just fade until maybe I'll think about Derrick Henry, maybe Saquon Barkley a little bit, but I'm not like Kenneth Walker's around that range. I would just rather go wide receiver and then hammer the RB2s or the Zach Charbonnets, hey, he might be getting more carries later. Then that's just more about roster construction than anything.
Yeah. If either of them get hit, I think it's a smash start. It's just, gosh, it's hard to project week by week who's going to get the volume, who's going to get the juicy touches. Because the best things that Charbonnet do perfectly complement what Kenneth Walker does. Kenneth Walker's a home run hitter who's great on the ground. And Charbonnet hits the hole. He's good in pass protection. He's good at catching dump-offs. So it's pick your poison there. That's enough Seahawks.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you wanna?
Well, yeah. I was just gonna say. I mean, it's a different offense, so keep that in mind. But I was just pulling up while we were just talking there. Look at Ken Walker's last 4 games. All right, he played 56% of the snaps and got 19 carries, 58% and got 16 carries, 43 got 10, 49 and got 17. So just because he's not playing that 60 plus, 70 plus % snap share doesn't mean that he's not being utilized heavily when he's on the field. So that's also something to remember.
That's fair.
That is completely reasonable. Give me 1 second while I pull up what Zach Charbonnet did in those 4 games. Probably just a bunch of catches that were silly and didn't do anything for anybody. It's taken too long. All right.
Here, give me. I got you, Mike. Here we go. Last 4 games, 44% snap share, 4 rushes, 42% snap share, 2 rushes.
No. Give me targets.
You want targets? Okay. 1 target, 2 targets, 5 targets, 2 targets.
There it is. So he's not going to be very useful on the ground, but it looks like obvious rushing situations are going to put Kenneth Walker on the field. Obvious passing situations are going to put old Charbonnet on the field. It's going to make us sad. Yeah. All right. Arizona Cardinals, who are going to surprise everybody this year. They're going to win way more games than they're supposed to. I'm calling it now. They added Jonah Williams at offensive tackle, who, if that moves you emotionally, go for it. They added Zay Jones, the perpetual flex of the week. Desmond Ridder finds a new home. Elite backup quarterback. He should have been a backup all along. Do you guys know this guy? Marvin Harrison Jr., ringing any bells? Drafted him. They drafted some guy named Trey Benson. I don't know if that rings any bells. Let's see. They added Tip Raymond, who is a hulking inline blocker at tight end, and then a couple of other offensive linemen. They lost Hollywood Brown. They lost Rondale Moore, RIP to the jigsaw puzzle, and DJ Humphries at tackle. I want to talk about Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray's valuation in Dynasty right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going as the wide receiver 5 on Keep Trade Cut right now. He's ahead of Puka, Wilson, basically everyone at wide receiver other than Chase, Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's one more that's hiding in there that I cannot remember. And then he's also going ahead of Caleb Williams, which is funny because I haven't been in a draft that Caleb Williams didn't go 101. Bijan Robinson and Anthony Richardson. Would you, Evan, take Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 101?
Yeah, it's very team dependent for me. The way we play Superflex, you want 2 studs, or I want 2 studs. That's how I want to build it. I'll deal with taking the value cuts at all the other positions to be able to get the 2 studs at quarterback. So if I need a QB2 on my team, I'm not trying to finagle it together. I'm taking Caleb and I'm just sitting there and forgetting it. But if I already have a QB2, say a Goff as my QB2, then sure, I will 100% take a chance on Marv being my wide receiver 1 on that team.
That's fair. Jagger, do people hate Kyler Murray?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like they legitimately. I know that because I just said on a pod when you grow from the dynasty space and then you move into mainstream redraft at a big company, you really understand what the average NFL Joe feels. And they are silly about Kyler Murray. And it's become my catchphrase. Don't let old coaches and players affect your fantasy decisions. Cliff Kingsbury is not a leader of men. And he's a huge reason why I don't have a lot of Jaden Daniels shares. And I think him and a lot of the attitude that he allowed in that locker room led to what we saw of Kyler. And granted, I didn't think we saw anything. We saw a 23-year-old who liked video games. What are we doing here? And people, the average Joe doesn't really understand how bad baseline QB play is and how much worse it can get after that. Gardner Minshew is a baseline QB at this point now. He is the bare minimum you can have to have at least a wild card team. And after that, you get the Desmond Ridders, you get the Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones combo. Shout out to the Pats. Woohoo, we're having fun. So I think that's a big contributor. It's just that people think about too much vanity stuff like Call of Duty.
I want to talk about this real quick. So we're going to move over to redraft. I know we're normally a dynasty-focused show, but Kyler Murray is going off the board as the QB 10 according to Fantasy Pros ADP. CJ Stroud's going off the board as the QB 5. Kyler Murray in 2023 had 4 top 12 finishes on a week. CJ Stroud only had 5. What are we doing here? What, like, we have forgotten that rushing quarterbacks are good for fantasy football? Like,
And Kyler Murray played less games. You're not even saying that like that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Kyler Murray only played half the dang season. What are we doing here, folks? I'm drafting an unholy amount of Kyler Murray in best ball. If you use Underdog, use code MikeK1 to get a deposit match. Little self-plug there. But I don't understand it. In Dynasty, he's the QB 11 right now. He's going after Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams. I think it's going to be October, and we're going to be like, oh yeah, Kyler Murray's good. We forgot that. My bad. So if you're looking for actual week winning upside, he should be over Joe Burrow. He should be over CJ Stroud. He should be over Justin Herbert, who I love with all of my heart, but the running upside that Murray brings is more than a lot of quarterbacks that are in front of him. Stop being silly, people. That's my rant, and that is the end of it. Evan, I want to talk to you, the offensive line guru. Will the Cardinals' offensive line ever put it together, or are they just an abomination that I'm going to have to watch every Sunday?
It's an abomination that you're going to have to watch every Sunday. Paris Johnson needs to take a step forward. He was good as a rookie, but you want to see a little bit more out of a first-round pick. He got better as the season goes on, which gives you precedence that hopefully he'll be able to, in his first full offseason, to be able to get better once again this offseason. Jonah Williams has played many different positions on the offensive line, so he has a lot of versatility. Will Hernandez arguably was the best one on that offensive line, but man, Kyler once again is likely looking at an offensive line that is going to make him run for his life, is going to make him get outside the pocket, and that's just how it's going to go once again for that offense. So hopefully they can be creative enough. They can move the pocket to be able to keep Kyler clear, keeping him able to see over those offensive linemen. We all know that's a big thing for these short quarterbacks these days. But yeah, Kyler should once again be able to use his legs in the red zone. He is lethal with his legs in the red zone. You look down and all of a sudden you look back up and you're like, oh, Kyler's in the end zone. He was just at the 20. How did he do that? Okay. So absolutely electric with his legs. Definitely love seeing that. I will say there is some concern of Trey McBride blocking a little bit more, but I think that's why they drafted Tip. Just a guess is he's going to be the inline guy to be able to help out that offensive line, be able to get Kyler a little bit more time to throw the ball.
Correct. I love the Tip Ryman call out. He's a very fun, real football tight end. Should not be on anybody's fantasy football radars. They also have Drew Petzig as their new offensive coordinator. Just a quick run through of the jobs that he's had in the past. He's been an offensive assistant, wide receivers coach, quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach, tight ends coach. He's basically coached all over the offense, but has done no actual offensive coordinator. This is his first gig. I hope that it goes well, but he's coming from the Cleveland Browns tree. Which, has anybody heard success stories from the Cleveland Browns tree?
Yeah,
hey, it's gotten better recently. Yeah.
Actually, I think here's to give you hope. One, I did a lot of my homework. I'm a Pats fan, and Alex Van Pelt is now our offensive coordinator. But it's one of the most QB-friendly offenses out there, and it's going to utilize Kyler Murray where he's best. They run a lot of boots, get their quarterback on the run, and run through the play action. So, that's why I keep telling people to get Trey Benson and James Conner. Like best ball, I'm getting both of them because I think they're both going to get a lot of run, and we've seen them use two backs effectively. And again, the volume might not be as crazy as some people might think because they are kind of a run balanced team. I wouldn't say run heavy, but definitely run balance. But I will expect that it will be easier for Kyler. Like a lot of what I think is bad about Cleveland and their offense is they've never had a QB, and then they got Deshaun Watson, if that makes sense. So,
woof. I mean, it's a really, really quarterback happy or easy scheme. So I'm sure Watson will put it all together. Can't wish for a better outcome for him. Let's talk about the running backs real quick. So we got James Conner and Trey Benson at very different ends of their career. I just pulled this up. James Conner is going behind Devin Singletary, Nick Chubb, and Zach Moss on Keep Trade Cut right now.
what are we doing with Nick Chubb, man? What are we doing?
If I have Nick Chubb and I can sell him for James Conner straight up, I'm doing it without in a heartbeat. He's going right next to Roshan Johnson and Keaton Mitchell. What are we doing, people? Like, those are backup running backs that are never going to see the field. So, we can do a little Nick Chubb anecdote real quick. What would you do with Nick Chubb, Evan?
What would I do? I'm holding him until he's back because Jerome Ford's going to hold down the backfield for the first half of the season, and he's probably going to get hurt because he's going to have to hold down the backfield for the first half of the season because Dante Foreman is, not good at football.
Oof.
So, yeah, he's going to have to do a lot of work. Chubb's going to be eased back into it. They're not going to throw him out there. He's the pride and joy of Cleveland. Every Browns fan loves him.
Yep.
They love what he does for the community. They love his mentality playing the game. They want him to be able to be fresh for the second half of the season. They want him to be fresh for hopefully another playoff game at the very least for Cleveland. We all know that city's starved for some playoff games.
Wholeheartedly agree. Complete opposite of Deshaun Watson. There actually may not be a better person than Nick Chubb. So if you're listening to this, I know there's like 12 of you out there. Go to firstcandle.org. It's called Light the Night Georgia. Every June they do a little like lighting of things, and then it actually supports the survival of Georgia's babies. So like if Georgia people trying to give birth are having issues, Nick Chubb's charity goes and helps them with their birth process. Wow. That is near and dear to my heart. So go to firstcandle.org, donate some money, tell them we say what's up. That is more important than anything else we're doing tonight. So let's talk more about the Cardinals running backs in all of their glory. Trey Benson on the opposite end of James Conner's spectrum. He's going as an RB16. Jagger, is that a little too aggressive, or is that about right?
I have him as RB14. I think it's about right. And that, like, to me, that's just what I feel about running backs. Like, I'm trying to get out of them quicker than I think most people, and that's why I'm willing to reach for Trey Benson. Like, if you get drafted second day, I'm probably having you in the top 24, unless, like, I mean, I won't say like Tank Bigsby, but I don't think this is the same situation where like Travis Etienne is still like fresh legs and prime. You know, like I think this is much different. So like I'm having at 14, and I'm willing to do that for Dynasty, even if he's not going to give me RB1 production right away.
That is a great point. James Conner, I think he's entering a contract year as well.
Yeah.
So remember when Tyjae Spears was a top 10 Dynasty running back for about a month? Like, there's going to be another opportunity for that with Trey Benson, whether you believe in him or not. There will be a sell window if you don't. So RB16 feels about right, even if you're just playing the market. I believe in the talent. Like, I love him in all of his glory. Go check out the film breakdown on the channel. Like, he was my RB1 in the class until Draft Capital told me otherwise. So
same, yeah. That's literally and like I was like I liked what Jonathan Brooks as well, but to me it was Trey Benson was like the more complete player. But like you said, once you get the Draft Capital and your competition is Miles Sanders, who is not as good as James Conner. I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
Oh, whoa. Chuba Hubbard disrespect? Oh, man. All right. I think that wraps up for the divisional breakdown. If anybody has questions, feel free to tweet at us at FFRPGpod. Otherwise, we're going to hop into the betting line. So we have just a couple minutes here. Let's talk about each of them. So the 49ers in 2023 went 12-5. Their win total in 2024 is 11.5. Evan, over or under, and why?
I mean, it's a tough number going through right there. 11.5. I'm going to take the under at 11. Why? I'm thinking the division's going to get better. There's obviously enough games in division. I think they lose more divisional games. Looking at the schedule, I think there's some games that they could lose. Obviously, the question marks around health. So I would be thinking health bet wise. Bosa typically injured, Debo typically injured, Ayuk usually loses a little bit of time, Kittle usually loses a little bit of time. So I'm going to take the under, but it's definitely not a bet that I'm attacking. I fully think that it's going to be right around that 11 win mark for them.
Sorry. That was getting a little weird. I think 11.5 is a good line. I'm personally going to go over. I think that the division, while it did get a little bit better, the Rams lost Aaron Donald. Like, they're trying to replace in the aggregate. I like Braden Fisk. I like Jared Verse. They're not Aaron Donald. So it's hard for me to see them losing more than one game to the Rams. It's hard for me to see them losing more than one game to the Seahawks, more than one game to the Cardinals. And then they're out of division games. They're playing the AFC East. If Aaron Rodgers isn't healthy, that's a pretty easy win. Which, betting on a 40-year-old to be healthy, not ideal. Betting on somebody coming off an Achilles tear to be healthy, not ideal. I think that there's going to be at least 12 wins on this schedule. Jagger, what about you?
I worry that they didn't address their biggest problem. I will say that I'm going back to their draft picks.
What are you talking about? They addressed wide receiver 4.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I guess Renardo Green is good. If Renardo Green hits, I'll take the over. But like, it's not just that they're the NFC West, is that they're in the NFC. Like, they're just like a tough team, and you can lose any game, and that's why I would take the 11. But like, their defense is what I think lost them a lot of games. Is like, their offensive line, I think Dominique Pooney was a good value in the third round. That helped it. But again, you're asking a third round pick to hit. But they just got torched in the secondary. Granted, Chase Young didn't work out. Leonard Floyd is like great as like your second pass rusher. Sucks as if he's your only pass rusher. So like, I should see improvement there. But they got torched in the secondary. So maybe if they're healthy, I would be willing to buy that. But again, it's one of those things. I think that's just a solid betting line, and I'm not willing to like hammer or have a strong feeling either way.
Yeah, this definitely isn't one that we're going to attack. I'm attacking the Cardinals line aggressively. But let's talk about the Rams real quick. They went 10-7 in 2023. Their 2024 win total is 8.5. Evan, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, no, hammering the over. As long as Stafford stays healthy, even with the loss of Aaron Donald on that defense, we saw the evolution of Puka. They went out and they signed offensive line help. So they got that to be able to help them out, which was really big there, going out and getting Jonah Jackson. They also went out and got Colby Parkinson, who is a really good blocking tight end, which is important to remember. They went out and addressed offense by drafting Blake Corum as well. So the offense should be running on all cylinders, and I'm 100% here for it.
That's fair. Chris, I'm sorry. You're going to be eating nothing for a while. I will not be on the show for the next 2 weeks. But it's coming back. Just stay tuned. It's funny that you're saying that you're going to attack this aggressively over, because I feel pretty comfortable about the under. Like,
so do I.
Their schedule is brutal.
Okay.
And they're a fine team. They're not a great team. So if Matt Stafford stays healthy the whole time, this is a very good line.
Sure.
It's hard to see him staying healthy the whole time. He's always, you can tick him off for missing a couple of games. He's an Iron Man that's going to make it happen, but gosh, losing Aaron Donald should move them 2 games down on its own. So. And
I'm looking at their schedule. A couple of them they won handedly, but a lot of them were super close games. Like it's they clearly performed well above expectations last season, and I think we'll see a little bit of regression, if not from QB decline, definitely from defense. As far as like their win total.
Yep. It's interesting to me, the 49ers. We talk about the roster that they have because they've just all been on the 49ers forever. Have they drafted a starter since like 2022 2020, 2019.
They draft defensive starters.
Have they? Last year they
Aaron-
took a kicker and a backup tight end.
Aaron Donald was one of the first players I turned in a mock draft NFL.com contest. Like, that's how long ago that was. Like, thinking about that. And that was the last starter they drafted. I'm pretty
For the
sure.
the Rams keep hitting. They drafted Puka. They drafted their
Oh, wait, who are you
corners.
talking
Yeah,
about?
you're
The
talking about
49ers.
the 49ers.
The 49ers.
Oh.
I'm saying
Brandon-
the Rams have been solid. They
Yeah.
all of their guys have been homegrown
Oh, I
and
thought
keep
you-
doing it.
Sorry, I was looking at their schedule. I'm
No,
really,
you're good.
I was looking at this. Have you ever seen a team win 3 games by 1 point in the NFL?
The Steelers,
Yes, the Vikings.
21.
Oh, okay. Well,
You don't remember Ben Roethlisberger? They won like 11 one-score games and then got blown out by the Chiefs in the first round? I do.
Yeah, I actually do remember that.
Everyone was like, oh, ESPN has their what they should have won total at 2, and they're at 11-0.
Yeah, I do remember that because like everyone who like knew better were like, "Come on now." Like, okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. But like the 49ers, yeah, you're right. Brandon Ayuk might be the only starter, and that took time.
That's been a minute.
I mean,
That's been a
Hufanga.
minute.
He was starting
Oh,
for them
yeah.
at safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy in the 7th.
Yeah,
Can't
Brock
forget about
Purdy.
him.
Brown.
I mean,
Jair Brown, maybe their backup
Yeah,
safety. That'd
maybe.
probably be yeah.
But man, they keep missing, and we just keep ignoring it because they hit Brock. They hit on all of these other players a while ago, and they just
Yeah.
keep riding it. Let's move on to
Sure.
the Seahawks real quick.
they also haven't had first-round picks, though, because they traded up for good
Yep.
old Trey Lance.
Yep.
So.
Or one more. Did Dre Greenlaw get drafted there, or was he a free agent?
I think he did. He was drafted in the 5th round in 2019.
Okay, yeah, that was a good. I'm an Arkansas guy, so I'm like Dre Greenlaw. Come on now. Okay.
2019. Seahawks. So 9-8 in 2023. Their win total is 7.5. I actually wrote in the show notes. I just wrote great line over ? Anybody have feedback?
It's a great line. I'm 100% with you. There's question marks about both of their tackles if they can stay healthy. They lost interior line presence. The defense should theoretically be getting a little bit better, but their defense was not good last year, which means the offense needs to carry. And is Geno Smith the quarterback that you want to try and hook your wagon to?
Oh, yeah. Here comes
There's very
Grub, baby.
Yeah, there's very little that separates Geno Smith from Tom Brady when you think about that offense. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'll take the over because like it was hard for me to say that, but they did a good job at getting a head coach that fixes their worst problem, which was defense. So like you would hope that their defense gets better. He's not like a Brandon Staley-esque fraud. You hope anyway. And then they got a really, really solid offensive coordinator because that's what the problem is a lot of times when you get a defensive coach is you don't get the offensive guy to go run an offense or vice versa. Like Mike McDaniel's like, I'm an offensive genius. Go pay Vic Fangio or go pay the next guy or something like that. So I'm willing to take the over. Like I'll take the coaching. I know what the offense can do, and now they got a defense. And I'm willing to buy the narrative even further that I set forth that the 49ers may lose more games than we expect if their defense doesn't take a step forward.
If they're losing more games, pencil in the Seahawks for 2 wins, so they only need 6 more. Yeah, I looking at their schedule, it's tough. This division is sneakily better than it was last year by a considerable amount. Like a healthy Kyler makes the Cardinals not a pushover. The 49ers are a powerhouse. The Rams are they're just going to continue to be the 6th or the 7th seed and be super annoying.
Yeah.
I still think 7.5 is low, but I think I'm in on the over. Last win total, the Arizona Cardinals, they were 4-13 in 2023. That wasn't real. 2024, their win total is 6.5, so they're penciling them for 2 or 3 wins. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. So, Evan, 6.5, over, under, and why?
It's another good line. So I originally had him pegged as a 6-7 team. for the wins. With Kyler being healthy for a full year, with adding Marv, the offense naturally gets better. Being in another year in that system, being able to be another year removed, but the defense still sucks. And that was the heel. The defense, they did not do nearly enough to upgrade that defense. They brought in a bunch of rookies. They drafted a bunch. They're trying to make a difference there, but they didn't do nearly enough. So I'm going to pencil them in as a 6-win team and say the under, but I'm not happy about picking a side.
Interesting. Jagger?
I lean towards the over a little bit. And I it's just hard for me to not think that offense can't pull a lot. But again, this is why it's a good betting line. These NFC teams are so damn hard because all their divisions are good. It's not like the AFC East where you're like, all right, pencil in 10 wins. If you're not the Patriots anyway. But I think I lean towards the over.
Big time players make big time plays in big time situations. This is over comfortably because Kyler Murray's a big time player. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a big time player. Trey Benson, big time player. All right.
McBride's a
Trey McBride, big time player. Michael Wilson, Stanford legend, big time player. I think 6.5 is a good line. However, we talk about how important quarterback is in this league, and having a quarterback that can actually make the offense move on rhythm is going to be huge for this team. They were all over the place trying to make ends meet last year. Now they get Kyler back. Now they get Marvin Harrison. You add two very important players at two very important positions. We know that tackles take a little time to get better. So let's pencil in Paris Johnson for a step forward. Let's pencil in the offensive line to be a tiny bit better. And let's put in Penn over 6.5 wins. I will take that every day of the week. If anyone would like to water bet that with me, we can. But this is all of our time. Jagger, tell people where to find you if they're still listening. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm over at Football Guys. We just started our new Dynasty channel with me and Jeff. That's all I got going on right now. It's
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So look me over there. See me wilding out in the Twitter streets, picking fights for no reason because I posted rankings. No, I'm kidding.
Heck yeah. This is the worst list I have ever seen.
Easily. I'm a known terrible wide receiver ranker, guys, FYI.
Yeah, but, you've never gotten one right, ever.
Not one. But bring me back anyway, guys. I enjoy talking to you.
Dude, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always so easy with you. It's always so fun. I feel like you vibe really well with us. Evan, dude, I'm going to miss you, buddy.
I know. It's going to be a hard couple weeks without you, Mike. It's like we're just soul brothers over here, just vibing, having a good time.
Where are you going, Mike?
You know what's going to get me through, though, Mike? What's going to get me through and keep the energy up to
just a little bit of dubby.
To be able to keep doing these shows without you is a little bit of dubby. And when you check out, make sure to use FFRPG at checkout.
Heck yeah. Get a little money back. Jagger, I'm going to be a dad in 48 hours. So...
oh, shit.
Yeah, on purpose, too. It's wild.
Yeah, wow.
We're getting old. But yeah, so I will be out of commish for at least a couple of weeks while I recover from giving birth. But Evan's going to hold down the show, and I'm going to miss it, but I'll let you know when I'm coming back, and I'll always be in the Twitter streets. You can find me at FFMikeCash with a K. Evan runs the show one. Cardinals are going over. Big-time players make big-time plays. Have a good night.